Hello, 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 fun food fans. We are back again, coming to you from my living room here in Tirana, Albania, for another fantastic Q&A session. In the prompt the other day, I included a couple of notes to say, ask your questions about some of the blog posts that you've seen on ourkitchenclassroom.com or about some of the photos, the food, the different dishes that you've seen us share on social media, some of the ideas that you might have read about in articles and things that I've shared all over the interwebs. And I also included a prompt saying it was okay to ask about travel. And boy, did you! You all lit up my inbox with travel questions. Where have you been? Where are you going next? Where do you want to go? Where do you not want to go? So very many travel questions. So, we are going to dive into today's Q&A session where I'm answering your questions. Most of them travel related today. Something simple and refreshing as a glass of cool water. What are you drinking today? Go ahead and leave me a note in the comments and let me know. For those of you who are not familiar with me, with who I am and what I do, my name is Karen Ricks, and I am the head chef of ourkitchenclassroom.com, and I am on a mission. Yes, this is something about which I am really passionate. I am teaching children of all ages how to celebrate life right now and how to love learning for a lifetime. And here at Our Kitchen Classroom, we do that through food and, yes, world travel. For those of you who have been following our adventures, my family and I have been circling the globe for almost 2 years now. We left our longtime home in central Japan, where we'd been living and working for 10 years, to pursue this magical adventure that is full-time global travel. And as I said, we're currently living in Tirana, Albania right now. But one of the questions that I think I stopped after about 6 different people asked, how did you get started traveling the world full time? Well, let me tell you, this was not originally part of the plan. When we set out from Japan, we actually went straight to Italy, which has long been a dream of mine. We headed for Sicily, where I had been accepted into this amazing program for cooking professionals at a school in Sicily. And so we were there for 3 months. And in all honesty, we had considered staying in Italy long term after leaving Japan. Picking up and moving from the United States to Japan was kind of major. At that time, my husband and I didn't know anybody who had ever done anything like that. We didn't know anybody who lived in Japan, didn't speak the language, read the language, write the language, understand the language. It was kind of wild. And so that move from Japan to Italy was not nearly as traumatic. In fact, it was filled with a lot of excitement because of the fact that we didn't expect it to be nearly as challenging as the move from the United States to Japan. But I actually had a potential job lined up when we moved to Italy. And unfortunately, that didn't work out. But fortunately for us, it encouraged us to continue traveling. So after 3 months in Sicily, which was an absolute blast, we picked up and moved to the UK for about a month. And from there to Mexico. And with each successive move, we realized that it wasn't this horrible, dreadful, terrible thing to be avoided, but even more excitement awaited in each new city, in each new country, on each new continent. It was amazing how, I don't know, not just fun, but energized we became by picking up and traveling to a new country. And after about the third move, I guess we looked at each other and we were like, yeah, we had thought about, maybe doing this for a year or so and then finding a kind of forever place to settle down. But let me tell you, the more we wander, the more it kind of stirs up that wanderlust in the heart. You know what I mean? It's like with each new place we travel, we realize, oh, this is really cool. Oh, this part of it is really exciting. This particular aspect of travel wasn't really something we had thought to explore before. And the more we go, the more we realize that there are still so many more places to see, so many more languages and cultures and histories and geographies to explore, that it just kind of feels like it would take 10 lifetimes to go all the places that we want to go and experience all the amazing things that we would love to experience. So while continuous full-time world travel was not necessarily part of the original plan, it has become an integral part of our adventure, and we absolutely love it. I can't imagine trading that for anything, really. It's been such a wild experience, and one of the reasons that it's so much fun to be able to share our stories with you is because this is not the sort of thing that I saw before we actually embarked on this adventure. I knew about homeschooling and other alternative schooling options. I knew families who did that sort of thing. But it wasn't until I dived deeper into other sorts of non-traditional forms of education that I discovered the term world schooling. And then it was like spiraling down the rabbit hole like Alice in Wonderland. It was like all these crazy things that I had never imagined possible. I was suddenly seeing, well, wow, that's not so crazy. Hey, there are other families like us who do that too. Wow, well, if they can do that, then why can't we? And so here we are, and it's really amazing. And so I hope that as we share more and more stories of our travels, our adventures, our cooking, our learning, it inspires you to take action, to learn more to travel more to push yourself outside of that comfort zone, to say, hey, maybe I hadn't imagined or planned on doing this before, but it could be the beginning of an incredible adventure. And that's what world travel has been like for us. So the other question that many of you asked was, what has been your favorite place to live? And oh goodness, I have to say that that's a lot like asking me what my favorite food is, because it changes from day to day, week to week, season or mood that I'm in. And of course, depending on where we are in the world, some foods are easier to come by than others. Well, with each new country that we have visited, with each new place that we have experienced, there has been something absolutely magical about it. As I said, we spent 10 years living and working in central Japan, and I was almost dragged to Japan kicking and screaming. It was not really high on my list of places to even visit, much less to live. And then I thought I might be able to get used to the idea of living in Tokyo, and that was out for my husband. So we eventually ended up in, like, literally smack dab in the geographic center of the country. And we had so many unforgettable experiences. But from Japan, as I said, we went directly to Italy, where we spent months in Sicily. After Italy, we spent time in London, and the UK was really, really amazing. Mexico, where we were on the Pacific coast, just up the beach from Puerto Vallarta. We had a chance to travel back through more than half a dozen different US states, visiting family members before circling back to Japan on a wild and crazy culinary adventure. That's the story for another day. We have visited Australia. We spent months in Queensland over on the northwest coast of Australia. And then from there, it's like, well, New Zealand is just right there. And so we hopped over to New Zealand, where we spent the better part of, what was it, February, March, earlier at the beginning of this year, uh, on a dairy farm way, way up on the northern tip, practically, of New Zealand. I think we could see the actual northern tip of the country there. And let's see, New Zealand, we went back to the US, back to Italy again, this time in a castle in Tuscany, and now here to Albania. And at each and every step along the way, the location specifically hasn't necessarily been like, oh, we absolutely have to go there because we want to see this one particular thing. No, different opportunities, just proximity sometimes, and the ease of traveling from one place to the next have sometimes dictated where we decided to go. But in each and every place, there's been something magical. Now, I grew up in Southern California, and I am proud to call San Diego, California, my hometown. And so I'm a warm weather beach girl at heart. And so every place we've been where there's been beach, I thought, oh yeah, I could settle here for a long time. And that includes Mexico, where we were just practically spitting distance from the water. And I spent so many sunsets, even just sitting by myself on the beach and taking a million pictures, none of which seemed to capture that magic. And we found the same thing again when we were in Australia. We spent some time in Surfer's Paradise on the Gold Coast. And wow, it's very aptly named. But again, the rushing waters, the sunset over the beach, it's just, yeah, the beach is one of my happy places. So I can definitely say that that was an absolutely incredible experience. And then I mentioned the dairy farm in New Zealand. Well, who would have ever imagined that you could be on a dairy farm, like literally surrounded by hundreds of cattle, and also still be spitting distance from the beach? Well, this particular farm was. And so it was amazing to spend the morning up early milking the cows and then be on the beach that afternoon fishing, catching the fish that we use to make fish and chips. Oh man, that was amazing. And again, such a radical shift in perspective, because never in a million years would I have thought that farming lifestyle and being a beach bum could go hand in hand. And we saw that that was another possibility too. Um, but even when we haven't been by the beach, there have been some amazing things that we have really loved about the other places that we've visited. London was this huge, bustling city, and yet we spent most of our time kind of tucked away in what felt like suburbs. So we could hop on the double-decker buses and give ourselves a tour around the big city, visiting all the attractions and stuff like that, and then kind of retire to a more quiet neighborhood and live like a local, where we shopped in the local markets and, went to local restaurants and played in the local parks. And it's been amazing to learn just how small the world schooling community really is, because during the month that we spent at the Tuscan Castle, just before we came here to Albania, we actually met another world schooling family that regularly plays and has a forest school in the park that was just around the corner from where we were living when we were in London. How crazy is that? You see, we are all really so very connected. And again, the more we share these stories of just how marvelous and magical these adventures are, the more I realize that when we know, when we begin to just kind of peel back the curtain just a little bit to discover all the amazing and incredible possibilities, the more I'm inspired to share with you, the more wild and seemingly crazy things I want to do, because it doesn't seem so wild and crazy anymore. So, I mean, who would have ever thought that a castle in Italy, or a cooking school, or running an international Montessori school in Japan, of all places, would be where I would go after growing up in Southern California? I never would have imagined it. And in fact, I wasn't looking for some of those experiences. And the fact that we were able to take advantage of these opportunities as they arose has been another really incredible part of the journey. And that brings me back around to the last question that I'm going to address today, which is, how did you end up cooking all over the world? Again, this comes back to just the sheer surprise that so many people express when it comes to the idea that the teaching that I have done for so many years was something that could be picked up and portable, traveling around the globe as we do. And again, this wasn't something that was really planned so much as an idea that when we left the community that we had built with our Montessori school in Japan, that what we were trying to share was really so big that it shouldn't be contained within four walls in a small community, only accessible to the people who were living in close geographic proximity to where we were. Now, at that time, I didn't realize just how large a scope, how large a population we could really reach doing things like videos here and accessing social media and sharing stories and recipes on our blog and through books and other articles that we've written. But it all really started in our kitchens, in our home in Japan, in our school, in the community kitchens, where we shared the amazing culinary and cultural events with our community there in central Japan. And it was really back then that we started traveling vicariously through the dishes that we prepared, the languages and the geography and the cultures that we explored. You know, one of our annual events in Japan was a Mexican fiesta. And again, having grown up in Southern California, that didn't seem like such a stretch to me because that was, again, part of the cuisine and the culture and the language that I grew up with. And yet, that was such a surprise to our Japanese friends and neighbors and families in attendance at our school. The idea of living so close to another nation's border that you could hop back and forth just as easily as you would travel from one town to the next was a very unusual concept in Japan, being an island nation and with travel being so much more of a big deal, kind of an expense, an undertaking. It was literally a foreign concept. And so, sharing some of those stories, sharing the language and aspects of the music and the geography as we cooked some of those dishes together, this was part of what made it so much easier to later pick up and actually travel to those countries. It didn't seem like such a leap anymore because we had already been preparing mentally, um, preparing even spiritually in our hearts for making this transition from one language to another, from one culture to another, from one cuisine to another. And that's so much a part of what we do every single day in our kitchen classroom. We open the doors to the entire world, sharing the joys, the possibilities, and the empowerment that comes with creating exactly what you want. The foods that you want to prepare, that you want to experience, you can do that in your own kitchen. And this is not just for adults. That massive levels of empowerment that happens in even the smallest of children as well. And I know that because that's what we did in our International Montessori School with children ages 6 and under. And so I know that if I can do that with dozens of children at a time, young children with whom I was working in their second or third or sometimes even fourth language, then I know you can do that with your children in your kitchen classroom, wherever in the world that might be. If you're excited about that undertaking and you want somebody to show you how, that's what I'm here to do. We are getting ready to launch the fall session of our fun family food workshop, where we will cook through my latest book, The Ultimate Guide to Cooking with Children, and I will share with you the preparations that we did in our school kitchens, in our community kitchens, to be able to work together, welcoming children as young as even a few months old into the kitchen to create the most magical and memorable meals. And we will share the recipes, the stories, the techniques that make that process not anxiety riddled or um, a big crazy mess that you're worried about cleaning up, but that make it fun, that make it enjoyable, that make it educational for every single member of the family. This is a fun journey that we're on, and you don't have to buy plane tickets and circle the globe in order to be able to wander the world. Let me show you how to do that in your kitchen classroom right now. I've got a link here in the header to this video so that you can sign up right away. We're getting started next week, and I would love to see you on the inside. And we've got one more day left of our special Q&A session this week, so keep showering me with those questions that you have. What more do you want to learn about how we operate and why we do things the way we do here in our kitchen classroom? I love reading all your messages, and I hope you're enjoying hearing the answers to these questions. If they're surprising, if it's not quite what you expected, I love that feedback too. Please share that with me. And I will look forward to jumping on here one more time again tomorrow and answering even more of your questions. I'll see you then.